Hey there! It's been a while. I actually had a plan to get a little break, like 2 weeks maybe or something, because I was moving to a new apartment, but here we are 2 months later. Anyway, I have a lot of new ideas for my new videos, so there will probably be a new video every week, and so hit the subscribe button if you're interested in that. Speaking of subscribing, I finally reached 100 subscribers and really I'm so grateful for that. I really didn't think it would ever happen. Thank you to everyone who believed in me enough to subscribe to my channel. It may seem as not a big achievement to a lot of people, but for me it really is. I didn't expect anyone would be interested in watching my videos, so I watched my subscriber count rise in awe, and now I'm actually at 149 subscribers, so yeah, I'm really shocked and really grateful. But moving to today's video's subject, I'm at my new apartment and I wanted to decorate it, and I've been into K-pop for some time, and so I thought it would be a nice detail to add to my workspace where I want to put some of my cross stitch and some other things to get something K-pop related, and I didn't want to put anything about any particular group there. So I thought about cross-stitching just K-pop, but I thought it would be nice to cross-stitch it in Korean alphabet, Hangul. And I don't know Korean. I started learning it about 2 months ago, so I don't really know much. Like, I can introduce myself and say a few short phrases, but that's it. But I just looked up how to write K-pop in Korean. And one thing about Hangul is you don't structure the word as you do in our alphabet. Letters can be different sizes because sometimes there is one letter on top of the other and sometimes it's just letter by letter, so they have different sizes, so you can't really get a cross-stitch alphabet from the internet and just cross-stitch whatever you want, because it just won't work, because letters, like I said, have to have different sizes. So I thought maybe someone would be interested in that. Maybe you want to cross-stitch something in Hangul, K-pop, or any other word or phrase that you want. And yeah, that's what I will do today. First, I will make a little pattern so I don't have to improvise while cross-stitching, and then I will cross-stitch it. I will do this probably tomorrow, so later in this video I will look differently. I'm just saying it so you're not surprised. And yeah, I think that's it, so let's get into it. As usual, I will design my pattern in the Stitch Fiddle. My pattern will be on Etsy if you want to buy it, but if you want to design it yourself, then I will put the link to the Stitch Fiddle in the description box below. It's not a complicated software, but if you're not sure how to use it, then I made a video about how to make your own cross-stitch pattern, and in this video, among other methods, I also focus on the Stitch Fiddle for a little bit, so you can check this if you're not sure how to use it. But okay, like I said, in Hangul you sometimes will have one letter above the other, and for what I know, the most you can have is 3 rows of letters. Basically, you want to start with the syllable that has the most rows of letters. So if you have 3 in your text, then start with that, as it will define the height of your whole text. But in my case it was 2 rows, so I started with that. I wanted it to be pretty small, so I did the smallest that I thought would look good. Then I made sure it was centered, and I had the last syllable, and so I proceeded to the preceding syllable. And as you can see, I just started writing letter by letter. Hangul letters are not really complicated, so it's really easy just to improvise and copy what you see on the text you found on the internet, if you don't know it, or if you know it, to just write. The most tricky letter was the first letter. It's K, like in key, because it has this diagonal line, so it's always tricky to make it look good when you cross stitch. So I made a few attempts on that. Just so you know, this round letter that's in the middle is silent, but every other letter is pretty easily translatable to English. The first letter is K, like in key, another is E, another is silent, and then there is E. This letter that looks like a Roman 2, it's P, like in part. Then there's A, and at the bottom it's B, like in bucket. So it's K, E, I, P, A, B, K-pub. When the text was ready, I wanted to add some cute little details around it, so I just made little hearts, and then I was wondering what else could I do, and I remembered I have kind of like a golden thread that I want to use, so I chose a color that looks a little bit like golden, and I made some little stars that I will backstitch. Then I decided to make the text pink, so it's more kawaii, and it still lacked something, so I thought I would try to make a shade, like a backstitch shade with black, and I was pretty happy with the design. Later on I altered it just a little bit because I wasn't quite sure if it's balanced well. Like there was a lot going on the left side and not as much at the right side, so I made it more consistent in my opinion, and on Etsy it's in this final form, and I also cross-stitched it in this final form. But other than that, the process is pretty much it. Alright, for the materials, obviously I'm gonna use my regular things like a canvas. I'm going for 14 count Ada. This is the most popular density, I usually use that. And an embroidery hoop. I will use rectangular because my pattern is quite rectangular, so it will fit the best. And as you can see, I cut Ada slightly bigger than my embroidery hoop, so I can place it there conveniently. Other things that I'm gonna use are embroidery needle, a needle threader, and small scissors for cutting my floss. And when it comes to floss, my design only uses 4 colors, 2 shades of pink, dark, and like baby pink. I don't have the exact colors that I used in that pattern, so I just wanted some dark pink and some baby pink, and I happened to have these shades, and also regular black. And I also put there like a goldish color, but I do have a gold thread, so I'm gonna use that. But you can use something that would emulate gold, I would say, but I have this, and so I'm gonna use that. And now I'm gonna put my Ada in my embroidery hoop. And I'm gonna start with the text, so I'm gonna cut a piece of floss from my pointy finger approximately to my elbow. And as usual, I'm gonna use only 3 strands out of 6, so now I'm gonna divide that. And I will make a knot at the end. And thread my needle. And I'm ready for the actual stitching. I usually start in the center of the design. My design is 45 by 21 stitches, so the center is that letter. So I guess I'm gonna start approximately in the center. I don't measure it. I guess it would be somewhere here. And I'm just gonna stop. When I was done with the text, I started cross-stitching hearts with that baby pink, and I quickly realized that the shade that I went for was too light. So I decided to undo this, and I checked what shades of pink I had again, and I decided to go for a little darker. I decided to just use that color instead. And this was it for the actual cross stitching, so there was only back stitching left. And for back stitching, I usually go for 1 or 2 strands out of 6, and I wanted it to be bold, so I went for 2 strands. And I just did like on the project. Then I actually had a Korean lesson on that day, so I left this at that point and I continued later on. After the shade of the letters was done, there was only one thing left, the golden stars. And this thread that I have has 3 strands, and I decided to use all 3 because I wanted it to be very visible. I was afraid that if I make it too thin, it won't be visible, so I used all 3. But if you use a regular embroidery floss, then you can use 2 like on the shade of the letters. And that was it. I decided to put it in a golden frame. I think it really complements the stars, and I can't wait to hang it on my wall. Okay, it's done. I hope you like it. If so, and if you want to cross stitch it yourself, I put it on my Etsy, and the link is in the description box below. And make sure to hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. And I think that's it for today, so see you in the next one. Bye! 안녕하세요.